Hello everybody, what a lovely little beach on Sargassum area. And when swimming out a few more meters, there is a lovely coral reef. We are in Siation in the south of Negros Island in the Philippines. And today I didn't even bring my scuba gear. So I'm filming on breath holds, which I'm not great at, but good enough. And what am I filming? I saw a sea snake, and this is Laticauda colubrina, which is the yellow-lipped sea krait, or it's called as a banded sea snake. And these are amazing animals. So these are, of course, reptiles, not fish, and they thrive in these Philippine shallow reefs. They are preying on eels and other small fish. Interestingly, there's a division of labor between males, which are somewhat smaller and supposedly preying on moor eels, and females, which are larger animals, and they're preying on conger eels. So this snake was going along its way. They usually scout the reef, and whenever they see a promising crevice where there might be an eel, they stick their head in, and then they check if there's anything to get, and if not, they come out again and continue on. So here you actually saw its tongue flick out, and here it's looking into one of these crevices. They are pretty venomous, but they're not very dangerous. So they're not aggressive. So I probably followed this snake pretty close up for 15 minutes. The snake would always stop and look into these crevices, and that's really the only reason why I managed to keep up with it. And so the venom which they have is a cholinergic toxin, which means it affects the synapses in the body, the synapses which are the connections between nerve cells, and these are the synapses using acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter. So this is a very important transmitter involved in the activity level of an animal, and attention, alertness, wakefulness, mustard gas, the horrible chemical agent of war, also affects the cholinergic system in the human body. So this is what the venom of these snakes does, but there are not a lot of cases where people were bitten. Most of them were fishermen which inadvertently caught them in their net, and at that point the snake was pretty panicky. So these are not animals which are known to go after people. So you see I'm basically swimming right behind it. It probably knows that it's so venomous and that there's really nothing I can do in order to endanger it. So they usually just ignore snorkelers and scuba divers. Now, there are a couple of interesting things going on with these. They are, of course, air breathers. The air breathers, just like us, they have lungs, not gills like fish, and they have to come to the surface once in a while to take a breath. Now, of course, I've edited this video, and I've either followed it on snorkeling from the surface or during breath hold dives. The snake only came to the surface once during that whole 15 minutes when I followed it. So it has a couple of advantages in contrast to humans when it comes to breath hold. And one is that it's a cold-blooded animal. So that takes less oxygen than being warm-blooded like us, like a mammal. The other advantages, and I'm saying that with a certain amount of pride, humans have bigger brains than these snakes. And here you see me take a breath, and the snake is still in the water. And so humans have much bigger brains, and the brain is a very oxygen-consuming organ. So that also contributes to the fact that they have to come up to breathe very rarely. Here it's going for a breath. You see it's just at the surface for a second, and then it's back to hunting. Now, These still have to come to land to give birth, to not give birth, to lay eggs, and they are doing this in contrast to another group of sea snakes which have evolved to be life-bearing, which don't return to land anymore. All of these sea snakes belong to the Laticauda, which are also the cobras, and there were at least 2 separate invasions of the ocean. And as a instance of convergent evolution, where similar evolutionary pressures gave rise to similar morphological forms. All of these sea snakes have these paddle-like tails in order to swim more efficiently when they're underwater. Now, this, as I've mentioned, is the banded sea snake or the yellow-lipped sea krait, seen in the Philippines. I used to live in Okinawa, Japan, and this lovely island is the home of a lot of turtleheads and sea snakes, which are Emidocephalus annulatus. And this is the only time I ever got published in the famous journal Nature, not as an author, but I contributed an image, and proudly so, to this really interesting article about sea snakes in New Caledonia, turtlehead sea snakes, which change their coloration. So there is a case of industrial melanism, where there's so much pollution that the dark rings grow thicker, and so they're better camouflaged in darker environments. And there's also more storage of environmental toxins in these darker rings, and they shed their skin more often. So quite an interesting study, and I'm happy that I contributed to the article. I hope you found this interesting, and check back soon for the next video.